Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. Also, the series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World will also be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these three fanfics. What if Reborn in Highschool DxD as a Lucifuge? What if Transmigrated to Medieval Pokemon World? What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 351, Discussing the Time to Take Action. Sutton stroked his chin and thought carefully for a long time before speaking. It can't be delayed too long, but it can't be rushed either. This is indeed a problem. When I left the organization last time, Quickly's strength wasn't as strong as it is now. It seems that he's swallowed a lot of low-level hollows recently. I'm afraid that even if we put all of us together, we're no match for him. If we want to win, we'll have to launch a surprise attack, so it's best to strike while he's resting. Uehara Shiroa turned sideways, observed carefully, and then asked, "When is this guy going to rest? He looks so energetic, it seems like he doesn't need to rest at all. Is there any other way to get the Soul Slayer? Try not to fight him, and take it away quietly while he's asleep." Sutton smiled and shook his head. "You think too little of him. If you sneak past him now, I guarantee he'll tear you to pieces in an instant." Hearing Sutton's words, everyone felt a little chilly. From Quickly's attitude toward these low-level hollows, it could be seen that his strength was indeed extremely powerful, not comparable to ordinary high-level hollows. Even the Black Spirit was many levels lower than him. At this time, Uehara Shiroa also had an idea. Since the Sirius organization attached so much importance to the Soul Slayer, it meant that the Soul Slayer was definitely a top-grade weapon. If he could obtain it, he would naturally have the confidence to walk in Hueco Mundo in the future. But now that Sutton was here, it wasn't easy for Uehara Shiroa to get the Soul Slayer. Moreover, if Sutton really wanted to help him, Uehara Shiroa wouldn't feel right about snatching it from him. Although all these things were being done in order to obtain the Soul Slayer, Sutton did in fact help Uehara Shiroa and the others out of trouble and save their lives. Uehara Shiroa wasn't an ungrateful person. Although he really wanted to get the Soul Slayer, he had to be reasonable about this. Just as they were discussing, some footsteps were heard at the entrance of the cave, and everyone immediately became nervous. Ryuta began to look around, trying to find a place to hide, but after entering the cave, there was only this one way, and there was no other place to hide. Now everyone felt something was wrong. Sutton said with a frown, "There's no way to escape now. We can only hope that the person who came isn't Miyamoto. As long as it's not Miyamoto, no matter who it is, we can just kill them." Hearing Sutton's words, everyone drew their weapons and hid in the corner. The people who came were guards from the Sirius organization. Following Miyamoto's instructions, they inspected the situation inside the cave as usual, and checked to see if Quickly's strength had reached the expected level. Before he even turned the corner, the man noticed something was wrong. He stuck his head out and saw Sutton and the others. He immediately shouted at them, "Why are you guys here? Don't you know that this place is a forbidden area for the organization? Who allowed you to come here? Do you want to be dragged to feed Quickly?" Seeing that the person coming wasn't Miyamoto, Sutton immediately gave a look to Uehara Shiroa, who drew out his Zanpakuto and rushed out from the corner. When the guard saw Uehara Shiroa, he was about to scream, but a flash of blade light appeared before his eyes, and he could no longer make a sound. Chapter 352, Things Will Soon Be Exposed. The guard fell to the ground. Sutton hurried forward and dragged his body aside, then spoke to everyone. it seems we have to take action today. Ryuta turned his head to look at Quickly, who was devouring a low-level hollow, and asked Sutton with a questioning look on his face, "Didn't you just say that we should wait until he rests before we take action? If we act rashly like this, we might lose our lives." Sutton replied, frowning, "The situation has changed now. We don't have that many options anymore. This guy came here under Miyamoto's orders. If he fails to return within a certain period of time, Miyamoto will immediately notice something is wrong. When Miyamoto brings his men here, it will be too late for us to leave." Uehara Shiroha looked down at the body of the guard and asked Sutton, "How would he know that we killed him? If we leave here as soon as possible, he won't be able to find out." Sutton shook his head. "You think too simply. The people in the serious organization are much more obedient than you think. Except for you few newcomers, no one dares to do such a thing. Besides, someone was killed here, which means that there are definitely people in the organization who covet the Soul Slayer. Miyamoto will definitely strengthen the defense of the cave next time, and it won't be so easy for us to get in again." After listening to his words, Uehara Shiroha nodded slowly, feeling that it did make some sense. It seemed that he could only do as Sutton said. In this way, the group was forced to take action against Quickly as soon as possible. The others gathered at the corner, and then Sutton began to assign tasks to everyone. "Among us, Uehara Shiroha and I have the strongest fighting power, so we'll attack him from the front to attract his attention, and the rest of you should try to attack from the back and sides. Remember, don't fight too long. If he wants to kill you, run as far away as possible. This guy won't dare to leave his back to the two of us for too long." Everyone nodded, and after getting ready, Sutton and Uehara Shiroha rushed out quickly. The sudden appearance of the group didn't make Quickly very nervous. Instead, he slowly stood up from the ground. Quickly opened his mouth wide, and a huge stream of air gushed out, causing the rocks around them to shake and fall. Quickly's cry was so harsh that Uehara Shiroha covered his ears unconsciously. Then, according to the positions assigned by Sutton, the group began to attack Quickly. Everyone thought that Quickly's shouting just now was just to express his dissatisfaction, but in fact he was reporting to Miyamoto on the surface. Miyamoto was lying leisurely in his chair. When he heard Quickly's call, he immediately stood up. If there was no unexpected situation in the cave, Quickly wouldn't have made such a cry. Realizing that something was wrong, Miyamoto grabbed his weapon and headed for the cave. At this time, a fierce battle was going on in the cave. Uehara Shiroha and Sutton began to attack Quickly from the front, and Quickly soon fell into a disadvantage. But this guy didn't seem to have used his full strength just now, and when Quickly stood up again, he was even more enraged. Chapter 353, Face-to-Face Confrontation with Quickly. Quickly rushed toward Uehara Shiroha quickly, but Uehara Shiroha stood there without moving. He waited until Quickly got close to him before he jumped into the air with both feet, leaped onto Quickly's head, raised his Zanpakuto and stabbed it toward Quickly's skull. Quickly howled in pain, but it didn't seem to cause him fatal harm. He shook his body wildly, trying to throw Uehara Shiroha off his back. The Zanpakuto was firmly inserted into Quickly's body, while Uehara Shiroha tightly grasped the hilt with both hands, but Quickly's strength was indeed great enough that he still threw Uehara Shiroha off and sent him crashing into the wall beside him. Chiyokura looked at Uehara Shiroha with a worried expression, and Uehara Shiroha immediately spoke up to remind her, "Don't be distracted, keep dealing with him, I'm fine." Sure enough, the moment Chiyokura turned around, Quickly raised his big claw and swiped at her. Fortunately, Raymond reacted quickly. He rushed forward, grabbed Chiyokura, and pushed her to the side, avoiding Quickly's attack. When Quickly's claws landed on the ground, they created a huge deep pit, with dust rising all around. Uehara Shiroha wanted to try to stand up again, but because he was seriously injured, he failed after several attempts. Just when everyone was at a disadvantage, Miyamoto's voice came from behind, "Blonde, you're really getting more and more courageous now. You actually dare to bring such people into the organization and bring them with you to steal the Soul Slayer." Ryuta subconsciously turned around and apologized immediately. "I'm sorry, President. I was just trying to protect my own life. I really had no other choice." Seeing this scene, Uehara Shiroa shook his head helplessly and shouted at Ryuta, "What's the point of you still talking to him now? When you really take the Soul Slayer away, do you think this guy will let you go? You no longer belong to the serious organization, so there's no need to grovel." Uehara Shiroa's words completely made Ryuta wake up. It could be seen how strong the intimidating effect of this serious organization on Ryuta was. Even in this situation, he was still confused. Miyamoto looked at several people with resentment, and when he saw a Zanpakuto stuck on Quickly's head, he said angrily, "You are simply seeking death. Let this place become your grave today." After that, Miyamoto rushed toward them with two swords in his hands, and Sutton took the lead. Sutton raised the knife in his hand to block Miyamoto's double sword attack, then jumped up and said to the others, "What are you guys still doing standing there? Hurry up and kill Quickly. We can't handle these two guys together. I'll help you hold Miyamoto back, you guys hurry up and do it." A sinister smile appeared on Miyamoto's face. "You think you can stop me? You're still a little naive." After saying that, Miyamoto began to exert force with both hands and chopped down fiercely. Sutton was unable to defend himself for a moment, and both men retreated repeatedly. Miyamoto's double swords fell like heavy rain and began to chop at Sutton continuously. After blocking several times in a row, Miyamoto stopped the attack. Just when Sutton felt something was wrong, he looked down and found that he had been stabbed in the abdomen. Chapter 354, Ryuta was frightened. Sutton covered his abdomen and knelt on one knee. Miyamoto slowly walked in front of him and asked, "Since you joined this serious organization, I've been pretty good to you, right? Now you're teaming up with these outsiders to steal our Soul Slayer. What are you thinking?" Sutton smiled disdainfully, "Why are you still saying these useless words? Now that I'm in your hands, you can kill me if you want." As soon as he finished speaking, Miyamoto raised his knife and a bloody mark appeared on Sutton's neck, and then he fell down stiffly. The scene before them made everyone dumbfounded. Even someone as powerful as Sutton was just a piece of cake in front of Miyamoto. Now Ryuta lost his fighting spirit and knelt down in front of Miyamoto, begging for mercy. "President, considering that I've worked diligently for the organization for such a long time, please forgive me this time. I just wanted to exchange my life for the Soul Slayer. The people of the Dawn organization are too hateful." Faced with Ryuta's weakness this time, Uehara Shiroa didn't say much. He knew in his heart that Ryuta seemed to have no hope. Sutton had fallen, and Uehara Shiroa was also seriously injured. It was impossible for the few remaining people to defeat Miyamoto and Quickly. Miyamoto said to Ryuta with a look of disdain, "You teamed up with outsiders to steal our treasure. Do you think I can forgive you for doing such a thing?" Then Miyamoto shouted loudly to Quickly, "Do you see these people in front of you? This is all your food for today. Devour them and continue your evolution." After hearing what Miyamoto said, Quickly immediately showed greed. Then Quickly opened his bloody mouth and bit toward the group. Uehara Shiroa had been standing by the wall and had never attracted Miyamoto's attention, but at this time he had been observing Miyamoto's position. Miyamoto wasn't far away from these people, and his eyes were never on Uehara Shiroa. After all, Uehara Shiroa was seriously injured and wasn't taken seriously by him at all. While Miyamoto wasn't paying attention, Uehara Shiroa quickly went behind him and used the power of the Hogyoku. The moment the Hogyoku was triggered, a strong light illuminated the entire cave. Miyamoto had no time to resist, and subconsciously covered his eyes with his hands, and he was also pushed by the huge energy of the Hogyoku right in front of Quickly. Everyone covered their eyes and didn't even have time to escape. Uehara Shiroa pulled out Ryuta and Chiakura, who were closest to the front. Quickly was also blinded by the dazzling light of the Hogyoku, and he couldn't see who was in front of him. When his bloody mouth bit down, the only person standing in front of him was Miyamoto. Quickly devoured Miyamoto in one gulp. Uehara Shiroa quickly took the others and stepped back a few paces. Then something unexpected happened. Miyamoto was very powerful. Even after being swallowed by Quickly, he didn't die immediately. Instead, he struggled inside Quickly's body. Quickly howled in pain. He seemed to have no time to attack the others anymore, but kept hitting the wall next to him. As Quickly continued to thrash around, the cave began to shake violently. Chapter 355, Miyamoto was devoured by Quickly. Rocks kept falling from the top of the cave. Uehara Shiroa quickly took his companions to hide in a corner and quietly observed the situation. Ryuta asked worriedly, "This guy is already very strong. If he devours Miyamoto, he'll probably evolve again. We can't kill Quickly and get the Soul Slayer. Isn't this certain death? Why don't we take advantage of this moment to give him a fatal blow?" Uehara Shiroa waved his hand and answered, "Don't be impatient. The energy that Miyamoto can provide him is naturally huge, but he may not be able to digest it." Everyone turned their eyes to Quickly again, and just as Uehara Shiroa said, Quickly was writhing in pain. Then a crack suddenly appeared on Quickly's body and began to emit white light. Quickly no longer struggled frantically like before, but instead stood still. The crack began to slowly expand and finally exploded. Quickly's remains were scattered all over the ground, and Miyamoto slowly walked out of Quickly's body. Uehara Shiroa immediately became alert, holding his Zanpakuto tightly in his hand, fearing that Miyamoto would continue to attack him and his companions. Miyamoto took a few unsteady steps forward with two swords in hand, and suddenly fell to the ground. The two swords supported him on the ground, which prevented him from collapsing completely. It could be seen that Miyamoto was exhausted, with only the last bit of strength left, with no possibility of counterattack at all. Uehara Shiroa originally wanted to ask Ryuta to go forward and check on Miyamoto's condition, but Ryuta had already developed a deep fear of Miyamoto and didn't dare to go forward. In desperation, Uehara Shiroa went forward to check the situation himself and came to Miyamoto, whose body was covered with Quickly's blood. Miyamoto supported himself on the ground with two swords in his hands, and slowly raised his head to look at Uehara Shiroa. "The power of the Hogyoku is indeed strong, but you won unfairly. You deserve to be destroyed." Uehara Shiroa smiled. "Your ability is superior to mine. If we fought head-on, I would definitely not be your opponent. Even Sutton was killed by you, so it would be even more impossible for me to defeat you. But unfortunately, you were defeated in the end. I'm afraid that the Soul Slayer will have to belong to us." After hearing what Uehara Shiroa said, Miyamoto wasn't angry but laughed out loud. This scene made everyone's hair stand on end. Uehara Shiroa frowned and looked at Miyamoto, asking him in confusion, "Your treasure is about to be taken away by us. You've killed Quickly, who you carefully raised for so long. It's still unknown whether the Sirius organization will still exist. Why are you laughing?" Miyamoto glanced at Uehara Shiroa with his eyes slanted and said with a smirk on his face, "The power of the Soul Slayer is indeed strong, but you may not be able to control it. As the president of the Sirius organization, do you know why I'd never used the Soul Slayer as a weapon?" Uehara Shiroa frowned immediately after hearing this. This was indeed something he was quite curious about. Since the power of the Soul Slayer was so strong, it would certainly provide a huge bonus to Miyamoto's strength, yet Miyamoto was willing to keep it in the cave. From a normal person's perspective, Miyamoto had no need to do this. Chapter 356, Soul Slayer May Bring Trouble. Uehara Shiroa looked at him with a puzzled expression, and then Miyamoto slowly spoke. "It's not just the Dawn organization that wants to get the Soul Slayer. The reason I raised Quickly was so that he could keep this thing. If I had carried the Soul Slayer with me, I wouldn't have lived to this day. I'm willing to lose today. I wish you good luck." After saying this, the smile on Miyamoto's face gradually disappeared, and he fell to the ground, with his two swords still stuck straight in the ground. Even long after Miyamoto fell, Ryuta still didn't dare to step forward. After making sure that Miyamoto was dead, Ryuta dared to walk over carefully, then responded with a look of displeasure, "Since Quickly has been dealt with, then according to our previous agreement, Chiokura should be the first to drink the blood and do the experiment for us." Chiokura lowered her head. She had already promised everyone before, and now it was indeed time for her to be useful. Chiokura slowly walked toward the remains of Quickly's body, but Uehara Shiroa grabbed her. "This guy's blood may not be able to detoxify, and it may be highly toxic. Chiyokura was already a little scared, and became even more worried after hearing what Uehara Shiroha said, but she also knew in her heart that she hadn't played a big role in the battle just now. Everyone had done their part, and now it was really time for her to play her role. Let me go. We already discussed it. You played your roles in the battle, and now it's my turn to play mine. When Ryuta first saw Miyamoto, he was so scared that he knelt down. What use was he in the battle? Uehara Shiroha held Chiyokura's hand and turned to speak to everyone. I think the one who played the least role just now should be Ryuta. Although Chiyokura's fighting ability is low, at least she didn't retreat. Ryuta felt a little ashamed when he heard what Uehara Shiroha said. He was indeed scared by Miyamoto just now. However, Ryuta reacted quickly and immediately refuted him. This matter has already been discussed. You can't go back on your word at this moment. Uehara Shiroha pointed at Sutton, who was lying on the ground beside them, then spoke. At that time, we chose someone to drink Quickly's blood mainly because we were afraid that Sutton would deceive us, but now that Sutton is dead, can this still be counted? Raymond also felt that what Uehara Shiroha said made sense, so he stepped forward and spoke on his behalf. I agree with Uehara Shiroha. Since Sutton is dead now, we should redetermine who will drink the blood. What Raymond said was still biased toward Uehara Shiroha. After all, everyone knew what Ryuta had done among them, and Raymond also disliked him. Ryuta knew in his heart that if a new candidate was to be chosen, he would most likely be the one, so of course he wouldn't agree. I don't agree. You're clearly targeting me. If you want me to go, just say so. Why make such a fuss? Uehara Shiroha smiled contemptuously and then spoke. I can do this. Uehara Shiroha's words shocked everyone around him. Chapter 357, Using Soul Slayer as Exchange. No one understood what Uehara Shiroha meant. After talking for so long, could it be that he wanted to exchange himself for Chiyokura? Raymond quietly walked to the side of Uehara Shiroha and reminded him in a low voice, You're kidding, right? Ryuta is still waiting there. If you really have this idea, he'll definitely be eager for you to go. Uehara Shiroha smiled mysteriously. I haven't even told you my conditions yet. Are you sure he'll agree? Ryuta looked at Uehara Shiroha with a proud expression and questioned him. I really don't believe you would take the initiative to do such a thing. Just tell me what your purpose is. Uehara Shiroha replied calmly, I can take this risk on your behalf, but the Soul Slayer must belong to me. After hearing this, the others didn't seem to have any objections. Uehara Shiroha had contributed the most to these matters, so there was no problem with the weapon belonging to him. But Ryuta obviously disagreed. You're so ridiculous. We've all risked our lives. Now the Soul Slayer is right in front of us, but you want to take it for yourself. What gives you the right? Uehara Shiroha replied nonchalantly, I don't mind, but if I don't go, then you have to go. You have to think about it carefully. Ryuta sneered, why should I go? It was agreed from the beginning that Chiyokura would go, and now that we're here, you suddenly changed your mind. Aren't you bullying me? Uehara Shiroha turned around and looked at the others, then spoke to Ryuta, it's fine if you disagree, then let's vote by raising our hands. Ryuta was a little scared now. He knew in his heart that if everyone was asked to vote by raising their hands, he would most likely have to go. This group of people had long disliked him, and he had disappointed them more than once. Although he gained some attribute bonuses in the last mission, he was still the weaker one among the group. Although Chiyokura was weaker than him, she at least obeyed orders and had never done anything that was detrimental to everyone. Even in such a critical situation just now, Chiyokura still didn't show any sign of retreating. Only Ryuta was so scared that he knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. At this time, Raymond also stepped forward to persuade him. Uehara Shiroha's contribution this time was indeed the greatest. If he hadn't pushed Miyamoto out at the critical moment, we would all be finished. So I think it's okay for the Soul Slayer to belong to him. You don't have to fight with him. What are your opinions? Ryuta felt dissatisfied, but if he continued to go against Uehara Shiroha, the ending would definitely not be good, and he would be the one who suffered in the end. Ryuta frowned and thought about it carefully. It seemed that there was no other way now. In desperation, he could only obey everyone's choice and give the Soul Slayer to Uehara Shiroha. Uehara Shiroha slowly walked inside, and the Soul Slayer was standing right in the middle. Under the gaze of everyone, Uehara Shiroha stretched out his hand to pull out the Soul Slayer and held it in his hand. The texture was indeed different. He compared the Soul Slayer with the sword in his own hand. The difference between the two swords' properties was huge. This time, Uehara Shiroha had achieved a huge improvement. Without upgrading the Hogyoku, with this Soul Slayer, his combat power had made a qualitative leap. Chapter 358, Quickly's blood can detoxify. Then Uehara Shiroha fulfilled his promise and slowly walked to the remains of Quickly's body. Just as Uehara Shiroha was about to reach out his hand, Shiokura stepped forward and grabbed him. "Why don't I do it? We have to find a way to get out of here later. If you stay healthy, you can provide great help to everyone. I can't play a big role." Uehara Shiroha smiled and shook his head. "It's okay. Since I got the best spoils, I have to stand up. Besides, we already agreed on this. Don't worry about me." Then Uehara Shiroha picked up a piece of Quickly's remains and held it high above his head. Quickly's blood slowly dripped into his mouth. Uehara Shiroha instantly felt his whole body go numb. This thing seemed to have a paralyzing effect. He lost consciousness and the Soul Slayer in his hand fell directly to the ground. Now the people around him also became nervous. Ryuta seemed to want to take advantage of this opportunity to harm Uehara Shiroha, but was stopped by Raymond. "What do you want to do?" Ryuta smiled awkwardly. "I saw him in so much pain, and I wanted to help him." "Isn't that allowed?" Raymond sneered and drew his knife to block in front. "It's still unclear what the situation is now. If you want to attack Uehara Shiroha, then you have to step over my body. But you also have to consider whether you have the ability to do so." Raymond's words did frighten Ryuta a little, so he had to step back a few steps and didn't dare get any closer. Uehara Shiroha stood there in a daze for a long time before he finally came to his senses and slowly regained consciousness. At this moment, he felt his whole body extremely light. The pain that the black pill had brought to him before also disappeared. It seemed that Quickly's blood did have a detoxifying effect and could neutralize low-level toxins. Uehara Shiroha immediately turned around and said to everyone, "It's okay. I feel very relaxed all over my body now. I think the poison has been neutralized." The others were very happy to see this scene. On the one hand, it was because Uehara Shiroha didn't lose his life, and on the other hand, everyone was saved. Everyone was ready to pick up Quickly's remains, but only Ryuta stood behind and didn't move, instead raising questions. "You guys are still a bit too hasty. It's only been a short while. You should at least observe for a day. If Uehara Shiroha dies suddenly in a day, will all of us have to follow him?" Ryuta's words made several of them stop what they were doing and think carefully. Raymond stood up and said to him, "We don't have that much time now. If we wait, the people in the organization will know about our situation here. It'll be a question whether we can get out alive." Others also thought that what Raymond said made sense, and they picked up Quickly's remains and drank his blood. Everyone behaved differently after drinking Quickly's blood. Several stronger people had the same reaction as Uehara Shiroha. They felt numbness all over their bodies and slowly lost consciousness. People with weaker strength like Chiokura showed obvious pain after drinking it. The scene before him made Ryuta not dare to try it easily. Chapter 359, Testing the Power of Soul Slayer. Ryuta had doubts about this to begin with, and he wouldn't easily drink Quickly's blood without a definite answer. Gradually, these people also returned to normal. Like Uehara Shiroha, they felt their whole bodies extremely relaxed, as if they were no longer affected by the toxins. Just when Ryuta was hesitating whether to drink or not, a group of people suddenly broke in from outside. These people were the elites of the Sirius organization. When they heard some noise down below, they came over to check out the situation. Several of them soon saw Miyamoto lying on the ground, then looked at the remains of Quickly scattered everywhere. they immediately realized something was wrong and questioned Ryuta. "You're the one who brought these people here, right? Are you willing to let them all die?" Even with such irrefutable evidence, Ryuta was still defending himself, and it was clear that he had a genuine fear of these people. "Listen to my explanation. I really didn't mean it. I don't want to see this happen." These people had no time to listen to Ryuta's explanation and rushed forward to capture everyone in one fell swoop. Uehara Shiroha had just obtained the Soul Slayer and was about to test its power, so he rushed to the front and swung the Soul Slayer in his hand to chop forward. A huge blade of energy slashed toward everyone. No one had time to dodge and was knocked to the ground by Uehara Shiroha. Everyone was dumbfounded at the scene, and Ryuta felt even more regretful. If he had known that the Soul Slayer was so powerful, he would never have given it to Uehara Shiroha. This group of people had been targeting him, on the one hand because he did do something that was detrimental to everyone, and on the other hand because his strength wasn't that strong. At least from Ryuta's point of view, as long as he could become the strongest person among this group of people, naturally no one would dare to stand up against him. Uehara Shiroha didn't have time to explain, and before these people could get up to fight back, he quickly fled with his companions. At this time, the entire Sirius organization was in chaos, and Uehara Shiroha took advantage of the chaos and ran away with everyone. The group fled for a long distance, and only stopped to rest after making sure that these people wouldn't catch up with them. Now that the most important trouble had been solved, Uehara Shiroha looked at his special task again. The cracks still needed to be repaired. The attribute bonus given by this task wasn't particularly large. The most important thing was that it could upgrade his own Hogyoku to a higher level, and this was the most important part. At this time, Uehara Shiroha's Hogyoku was at the lowest level. If it could be upgraded to a higher level, the power would double. Combined with his own Soul Slayer, killing some high-level hollows would be as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. After everyone sat down, Uehara Shiroha made a suggestion. "I'm still going to continue repairing the cracks. If you want to join me, please raise your hands." Everyone had their own tasks. Although the rewards were different, the task objectives were the same, so everyone raised their hands, except for Ryuta, who remained unmoved. The reason why Ryuta didn't choose to continue the mission with everyone was very simple. His mission had been completed long ago. Ryuta's mission was to kill the Black Spirit. After the Black Spirit was killed, he had already received the mission reward. The following things were just what he had to do. He didn't want to be tied to these people. Chapter 360, Ryuta leaves the team. Now that all the troubles had been resolved, Ryuta certainly wouldn't choose to continue taking risks with them. He was also clear about the strength of the Dawn organization, and the hollow strength of these people they raised wasn't inferior to Quickly. The most crucial thing was that there was only one Quickly in the entire Sirius organization, while the Dawn organization had many Quickly-like hollows. As a member of the Sirius organization who had been fighting against the Dawn organization for many years, Ryuta understood their strength better than anyone else. He would never go against them again. The most important thing was to ensure his own life. Uehara Shiroha thought about it carefully. Although Chiyokura was everyone's living encyclopedia, she didn't know everything, especially about a relatively secret organization like this one. If they wanted to deal with the Dawn organization, Ryuta was really the most core member of the entire team. As the saying goes, only when you know yourself and your enemy can you win 100 battles. Only when Ryuta was around could they understand their opponents well enough and come up with ways to deal with them. Uehara Shiroha walked up and said to Ryuta, "Are you sure you don't want to come with us?" Ryuta sneered, "Is there any benefit in going with you? I've completed my mission. The Sirius organization is in chaos now. I still need to find the next backer. How can I have time to play with you?" Uehara Shiroha smiled mysteriously. It was definitely impossible to give up the Soul Slayer, but Uehara Shiroha didn't intend to let him leave so easily. Uehara Shiroha pretended to agree at first. "Okay, then we'll see each other again." Ryuta smiled disdainfully and then turned away. At the moment when Ryuta turned around, Uehara Shiroha quietly pinched a handful of powder, sprinkled it on Ryuta's back, and then went back himself. Ryuta turned around and said to everyone, "Thanks for your care during this period. We've fought side by side for such a long time, but everyone has their own aspirations. I won't go with you. Let's meet again when we're destined to meet again." After saying that, Ryuta turned around and left. Looking at Ryuta's figure walking away, Raymond asked Uehara Shiroha in confusion, "You just let him go like this?" If it weren't for Ryuta, it wouldn't be so easy for us to deal with the Dawn organization. He's the only one who knows the Dawn organization best. Uehara Shiroha smiled, "Don't worry, he won't go far. Everyone, be prepared for battle." Everyone was confused after hearing what Uehara Shiroha said. They had no idea what other tricks he had up his sleeve. However, they still followed his instructions and became more vigilant. After leaving everyone, Ryuta felt extremely relaxed and free for the first time. This time he didn't have to care about everyone's faces and could finally leave by himself. Not long after walking out, Ryuta spoke smugly, "These guys are simply overestimating their own capabilities. They want to deal with the Dawn organization with just a few of them. It's a pity that the Soul Slayer will finally fall into the hands of the Dawn organization." Ryuta walked forward while whistling, and soon realized that something was wrong. He slowly stopped and found that there were several hollows approaching him. Ryuta carefully drew out his knife and stood there trembling, not daring to make any unnecessary movements. Chapter 361, Ryuta is besieged by low-level hollows. At this time they were on the surface. Unlike the outer areas, there were not only low-level hollows on the surface, but also some high-level hollows that had not yet fully evolved. Ryuta always felt as if he was being attracted by something. The hollows around him began to increase in number and slowly moved toward him. If there were only a few low-level hollows, it wouldn't be difficult for him at all. But at this time, there were more and more hollows around, and Ryuta knew that he couldn't defeat these guys, so he could only turn around and run back in the direction he had just come from. Ryuta ran away, and these hollows chased him madly from behind. He shouted as he ran, "Come and save me quickly, I'm being chased by hollows." The companions not far away soon heard Ryuta's cry for help. Raymond looked at Uehara Shiroha with a puzzled expression, while Uehara Shiroha smiled calmly. "I said this guy can't get far. Get ready to rescue him." Then several people stood up and headed toward Ryuta. At this time, they saw him running madly in front, with a group of low-level hollows chasing him from behind. The strength of these low-level hollows wasn't very strong, but there were too many of them. Ryuta couldn't handle them alone, but if all of them worked together, there would definitely be no problem. Uehara Shiroha took the lead and rushed to the front, holding the Soul Slayer in his hand and started to chop left and right, and soon he cooperated with everyone to eliminate this group of low-level hollows. When he turned around and looked at Ryuta, he was still in shock and kept patting his chest with his hands. Shiokura walked to the side of Uehara Shiroha and asked him curiously, "Normally there aren't that many hollows on the surface. How did you know that Ryuta would come back?" Uehara Shiroha replied in a low voice, "Because I sprinkled some powder on his back to attract these hollows. The smell is quite attractive to them. It wouldn't be long before these hollows would drive him back." Shiokura couldn't help laughing after hearing this. Seeing the two people whispering and talking and laughing in the distance, Ryuta realized that something was wrong and stood up to question Uehara Shiroha. "Did you play some trick on me? Why did these hollows chase me and try to bite me when I just walked a short distance?" Uehara Shiroha sneered, "You are such an ungrateful person. We just rescued you from these monsters and now you turn around and blame me. These low-level hollows will naturally look for food to devour in order to complete their evolution. You are of course food in their eyes. Do they have any other reason to chase you?" Ryuta was speechless, but he still felt that something was wrong. Although Raymond didn't know what means Uehara Shiroha used, after seeing the scene in front of him, he probably had an idea in his mind, so he had to step forward to smooth things over. Forget it, forget it. Now that everything is past and everyone is fortunately safe and sound, what are your plans for the future? Are you still planning to leave?" Now Ryuta was a little hesitant. Although he still wanted to leave this group of people, when he saw the smug expressions on the faces of Uehara Shirota and others, he wasn't sure if he could leave safely. If he insisted on leaving at this time, the same situation might happen again. He would be attacked by hollows right after he left. Chapter 362, Ryuta returns to the team again. He was lucky this time and didn't walk very far, so he was rescued by everyone. He didn't know what would happen next time. Ryuta turned around and looked at Uehara Shirota, then spoke, "I would like to leave, but this guy doesn't seem to be planning on letting me go." Uehara Shirota stretched and said with an impatient look on his face, "You're being a little unfair when you say that. I never intended for you to stay. If you want to leave, just go ahead. Stop making so many excuses." Ryuta wasn't stupid. He knew that this incident wasn't an accident and he didn't dare to take any more risks, so he had to stay. "Forget it, I'll stay with you guys." Seeing that Ryuta was willing to stay, everyone smiled. Ryuta's character wasn't that good. If they were to choose teammates, no one would be willing to choose him. However, he could definitely play a big role in dealing with the Dawn organization. So when they learned that Ryuta was willing to stay, everyone had a happy look on their faces. Then everyone gathered together again, and Uehara Shirota asked Ryuta, "Since you're willing to stay, then don't just stand there. Tell us what the structure of the Dawn organization is. If we want to defeat them, where should we start?" Ryuta frowned and asked after hesitating for a long time, "Is this mission really that important to you? I advise you not to provoke the Dawn organization. They're not that easy to mess with." Uehara Shirota shook his head helplessly, "Just say what you're told to say. Why are you talking so much nonsense? If you don't want to help, leave as soon as possible." Ryuta sighed helplessly, then began to introduce the situation of the Dawn organization. This Dawn organization was founded by someone called Dewey. They've controlled half of the outer areas since the beginning. At least half of the low-level areas in the outer circle have been captured by them. Raymond asked in confusion, "They captured these low-level beings only to feed the high-level beings they raised. Why would they want to destroy the barrier between the outer and inner areas now? After the cracks appear, won't the number of low-level beings in the outer areas become fewer and fewer?" The people around nodded, and it seemed that everyone was very curious about this matter. After all, the Dawn organization treated these low-level hollows in the outer areas as food. Once the high-level hollows in the inner areas ran out, it wouldn't take long for them to eat up all the low-level hollows in the outer areas. Before Ryuta could answer, Uehara Shirota spoke up, "This is probably because low-level hollows can no longer satisfy their appetite. When the hollows they raised themselves evolved to a certain level, the effect of feeding them low-level hollows was minimal. They put these high-level hollows in the outer areas, let the high-level hollows devour the low-level ones, and then catch these evolved high-level hollows as food. The effect will definitely be doubled." Ryuta sneered and then spoke, "I can't believe you're quite smart. Although I don't know the specific reason, this is my guess. That's why I suggest you not to provoke them. They may have high-level hollows who are many times stronger than Quickly. There's no way we can be their opponents with just a few of us." Chapter 363, Arrived at the Dawn organization's territory. After hearing Ryuta's description, Uehara Shirota also became conflicted. He knew that Ryuta wasn't trying to scare him. Uehara Shirota had been captured by the Dawn organization before, and judging from the large number of low-level hollows they captured, it could be seen that they must have high-level hollows that were no worse than Quickly. It was so difficult for them to even deal with Quickly. If Miyamoto and Quickly hadn't killed each other, they would never have been able to take down Quickly. If you wanted to go against the Dawn organization at this time, you probably couldn't do it by force. Just as they were discussing, a few people wearing masks came from a distance. These masks looked too familiar to Uehara Shirota. These masks were taken from those low-level hollows, and Uehara Shirota had seen many such people in the Dawn organization before. It seemed that these people were all from the Dawn organization. Uehara Shirota first asked the other companions to calm down, and then quietly observed the few people in the distance. These people seemed to be coming toward them. Seeing them getting closer and closer, Uehara Shirota grasped the hilt of the Soul Slayer, ready to attack at any time. But at this moment, Raymond suddenly grabbed his hand. Don't be impulsive, try not to conflict with these people, and see what they're here for. Uehara Shiroha nodded slowly, and soon the group of people walked in front of the crowd. The masked man standing in the front began to speak. What are you guys doing? We are in the Dawn Organization's territory ahead. Don't go any further, or we'll treat you as enemies. Uehara Shiroha turned around and looked at his other companions, and they all nodded in tacit understanding. It seemed that these people were patrolling nearby and didn't know them. Fortunately, they weren't the same group of people who guarded them in the dungeon before. If they recognized them, there would probably be a fierce battle. Uehara Shiroha walked forward and said with a smile, I'm sorry, we came here by accident. I've heard of the reputation of the Dawn Organization for a long time. I wonder if any of us are qualified to join. The masked man standing at the front looked carefully at the people in front of him, then spoke in a sarcastic tone, just a few of you? You'd better go back to where you came from and stop hanging around here. I may not be so polite to you next time I see you. As soon as he finished speaking, Uehara Shiroha suddenly drew out the Soul Slayer in his hand, and a flash of blade light appeared, and the mask on the face of the masked man was directly cut into two pieces. After the mask fell off, the face revealed underneath surprised everyone present. There was nothing special about this man except for his eyes. His entire face seemed to have traces of being burned by fire. The shape of his facial features was completely unrecognizable and he looked like a monster. If he hadn't chatted with Uehara Shiroha just now, Uehara Shiroha would have even thought that the guy in front of him was really a monster. Shiokura was also frightened by the scene before her and grabbed Uehara Shiroha's arm tightly. This person's reaction was very intense, as if Uehara Shiroha had hit a sore spot. You're looking for death, right? After saying that, several people nearby also rushed up. Raymond quickly stopped in front of the crowd and spoke, Everyone, don't be impulsive. We're also members of the Dawn Organization. We must not hurt our unity. Chapter 364, Being Targeted by the Masked Man. After hearing this, the other party looked at the people in front of him with a questioning look. Who are you trying to fool? You're all so fragile and clean that you've never been through the trials of joining the organization. Take them down for me. At this time, Uehara Shiroha finally figured it out. It seemed that the faces under each mask were so terrifying. This was also a sign for their Dawn Organization to distinguish each other. Uehara Shiroha stood up and stuck the Soul Slayer into the ground. Although we're not members of the Dawn Organization, we've received a mission from the Dawn Organization. This Soul Slayer is the target of our mission. Now that the Soul Slayer has been brought back by us, are you planning to kill us along the way? Do you want to take the Soul Slayer for yourself? Uehara Shiroha's words really shocked the people present. After thinking for a long time, the leader said, Since you're already near the organization, why don't you just go back? What are you doing here loitering? Are you planning to run away? Uehara Shiroha smiled, Look at what you said, if we were going to run, why didn't we run farther away? How could we run to your territory? It's getting dark now. Let's rest and set off again at dawn tomorrow. The other party slowly walked in front of Uehara Shiroha. The face covered with scars really made Uehara Shiroha feel a little unsettled, but he still pretended to be calm and didn't react at all. Apart from this pair of sharp eyes, no expression could be seen on the man's face. He approached Uehara Shiroha and spoke, You better not be lying to us. The Dawn Organization is not someone you can afford to offend. I'll escort you to the territory tomorrow morning. Don't play any tricks. After saying that, the other party left with a few masked men beside him. Before leaving, he didn't forget to pick up the mask that had been broken into two pieces on the ground. This mask didn't seem to have any special value to them. It just covered up their ugly faces. It was the last fig leaf for these disfigured people. After the few people left, Raymond immediately turned to Uehara Shiroha and asked, This is troublesome. If we go in with the Soul Slayer, not only will you lose the Soul Slayer, but our next plan will also be difficult to achieve.
Ryuta said sarcastically, the Soul Slayer didn't belong to him in the first place, so it's normal for it to go back.
Are you all going to risk your lives for his selfish interests? If it were me, Uehara Shiroha, you should just hand over the Soul Slayer. Ryuta was obviously making sarcastic remarks here. After all, the Soul Slayer wasn't in his hands, and the most important thing was to ensure his own safety. Uehara Shiroha spoke slowly. If handing over the Soul Slayer can really buy everyone's safety, I would never hesitate, but do you really think the Dawn organization will spare us? Even if we hand over the Soul Slayer, I don't think they'll let us go. From their perspective, the fact that we've united together to turn the serious organization upside down shows that we're very powerful. If they let these high-level hollows devour the rest of us, they'll be able to complete another revolution. Chapter 365, If the cracks are not repaired, chaos will come. Uehara Shiroha's analysis made everyone start to hesitate. Even Ryuta, who had just stood up to refute, fell silent and didn't dare to say anything more. Raymond asked, if you say so, we can't go back, but these guys are watching us not far away. After saying that, Raymond turned his head and looked into the distance. The masked men were staring at them not far away and hadn't left. Uehara Shiroha answered, don't worry about that. These guys are no match for us. It's not impossible for us to run away if we really want to. But there's still a problem that hasn't been solved. If we leave, the cracks may never be repaired. Ryuta wasn't tasked with repairing the cracks, so he was the first one to stand up and refute Uehara Shiroha. It's just a trivial task. At worst, we can just give up on it. I'm really curious about what your mission reward is. It's enough to make you work so hard. Uehara Shiroha sneered, this isn't just a matter of completing the mission. If the cracks aren't repaired, Hueco Mundo will be in chaos. These high-level hollows keep rushing into the outer areas and devouring all the low-level hollows. It won't be long before all the low-level hollows are extinct. This may seem like a good thing, but it actually makes Hueco Mundo lose its balance. I'm afraid we won't be able to come here anymore. After hearing what Uehara Shiroha said, everyone thought carefully. The reason why Hueco Mundo was able to achieve balance in the past was that the inner and outer areas were clearly divided. Low-level and high-level hollows were each in their own territories, with little intersection between them, and the evolution of high-level hollows wasn't particularly fast. Now that the cracks had appeared, the balance of Hueco Mundo had been destroyed in an instant. This time, Uehara Shiroha wasn't only completing his own mission, but also considering the long-term future. Ryuta said with disdain, after talking for so long, why don't you come up with a solution? Isn't there still no answer? Uehara Shiroha frowned and thought carefully, then spoke, if we want to solve the problem, we must first infiltrate the Dawn organization. It seems that we can only use their own methods against them. The people around him didn't seem to understand what Uehara Shiroha meant, so he continued to explain, in my opinion, they won't let us go after getting the Soul Slayer. They'll definitely find a way to imprison us again. Although we'll be arrested, at least we'll have penetrated into the Dawn organization. Once we're inside, we can find a way to solve the problem ourselves. The meaning of Uehara Shiroha's words was very clear, he was willing to hand over the Soul Slayer. Although Uehara Shiroha was somewhat reluctant, there was no other way to infiltrate the Dawn organization except this method. Several masked men not far away were staring at them. Tomorrow morning they would swagger into the territory of the Dawn organization, and the Soul Slayer would definitely not be hidden. Uehara Shiroha continued, this mission still has certain risks. If you don't want to continue the mission, you can choose to quit now. The poison in your bodies has now been removed. You can leave at any time if you want. I won't stop you. Chapter 366, Picking Up a Broken Mask. The people nearby looked at each other, and no one had any intention of leaving, except Ryuta, who stood up. You said that yourself. I won't accompany you anymore. Go and die on your own. Just as Ryuta took a few steps forward, Uehara Shiroha drew out his Soul Slayer and slashed over. A stream of sword energy hit directly in front of Ryuta, scaring him so much that he retreated repeatedly. What are you doing? Didn't you just say that?
If you don't want to participate, you can quit. Can't I choose to quit now? Uehara Shiroha smiled coldly. Everyone can quit, except you.
You're the only one who knows the Dawn organization best.
If you leave, how can we escape alive?
Ryuta gritted his teeth and wanted to continue to refute, but after looking at the Soul Slayer in Uehara Shiroha's hand, he swallowed his words back. He knew very well in his heart that if he insisted on leaving at this time, Uehara Shiroha definitely wouldn't let him go easily. So this trip to the Dawn organization was full of difficulties, and there was a possibility of losing one's life, but it was better than being killed by Uehara Shiroha with a single sword.
Then everyone discussed it carefully and decided that the masked men outside might become their breakthrough point.
When the sky was just getting light, several masked men in the distance walked toward Uehara Shiroha. The man whose mask was broken by Uehara Shiroha last night had already put on a new mask and walked forward, saying, "It's already daybreak, so stop wasting time and get on the road."
Everyone stood up and followed the masked man.
While walking toward the Dawn organization's territory, Uehara Shiroha accidentally caught a glimpse of a broken mask left aside and picked it up.
This was the mask that Uehara Shiroha had cut off yesterday.
Although it was taken away by the masked man, he had now changed into a brand new mask, so he naturally threw away the broken one. The broken mask was of no use to him, but to Uehara Shiroha, this thing could definitely be of great help.
Under the watchful eyes of several masked men, they swaggered into the territory of the Dawn organization and were soon taken away. Several people were blindfolded and taken to a hall.
After the cloth strips in front of their eyes were removed, a person was standing in front of them. This man was wearing purple clothes and no mask on his face. He looked no different from an ordinary person, forming a sharp contrast with the masked members of the organization next to him.
Uehara Shiroha thought about it carefully. If nothing unexpected happened, this person should be the Dewey mentioned by Ryuta.
The man walked forward and carefully examined Uehara Shiroha in front of him, and then his eyes quickly fell on the Soul Slayer.
Then he stretched out his hand toward Uehara Shiroha. Uehara Shiroha took the Soul Slayer off his back and handed it to the other party. Then the man spoke, "Well done.
Let me introduce myself.
I am the president of this organization. You're not members of our organization. Just call me Dewey."
Uehara Shiroha didn't say much, and then Dewey took the Soul Slayer in his hand and looked at it carefully. Slowly, a smile appeared on Dewey's face, and he said to himself, "It really is a divine weapon. If I have it, it won't be long before I can rule Wako Mundo."
Dewey's eyes were filled with greed. Chapter 367, Everything is as expected. At this time, Uehara Shiroha spoke, "Since the things have been returned to you, can you let us go?"
Dewey was immersed in joy when he was suddenly interrupted by Uehara Shiroha's words.
His expression instantly became serious. "Oh, by the way, if you hadn't mentioned this, I would have forgotten about it. Someone, bring the antidote to them."
Hearing what the other party said, Ryuta whispered to the others beside him, "I think Uehara Shiroha is just being paranoid and judging others by his own standards.
He has no intention of doing anything to us at all." Uehara Shiroha sneered and said nothing.
He always believed that this matter wasn't that simple. Then several masked men walked out from the side and gave antidotes to several people. Since Uehara Shiroha and others had already been detoxified in advance, there was no special reaction after taking the antidote. Uehara Shiroha continued to ask, "The mission has been accomplished, and the Soul Slayer is in your hands.
Now I hope you can let us go." Dewey's mouth tilted slightly and he spoke, "You're in such a hurry to leave? Don't be in such a hurry. The matter isn't over yet."
Then several masked men nearby came forward, picked up Uehara Shiroha and others, and took them out together. This time, everyone was blindfolded again, as if they didn't want them to know the entire terrain of the Dawn organization.
Ryuta kept shouting when he was taken away, "You guys don't keep your word. Didn't you say you would let us go once we got the things back? What are you trying to do now?"
But at this time, Uehara Shiroha was unusually calm, because all this was already within his expectations. He knew that these people wouldn't let them go so easily. Uehara Shiroha tried his best to calm himself down and listen quietly to the sounds around him. Through the sounds of the surrounding environment, he could roughly know the direction they were going and how many turns they had made. After hearing the sound of the iron door being opened, Uehara Shiroha was basically certain that they had been taken to the prison warehouse again. When the blindfolds were taken off again, the surrounding situation was so familiar. They were indeed brought here again. But unlike the last time, this time they weren't locked up separately, but were directly put into a cell. Ryota kept grabbing the cell door and shouting at the people outside, "What do you mean? You already got the Soul Slayer, why don't you let us go? What do you want to do?" The masked men outside seemed not to have heard what they said, and continued to lock the cell, then turned around and left. After seeing these people leave, Ryota turned around and questioned Uehara Shiroha, "Are you mute? These people aren't keeping their word. Why are you standing there without saying a word? We all followed you here. What should we do in this situation?" Uehara Shiroha shrugged and said indifferently, "Didn't I make it clear to you before I came here? These guys won't let us go easily, so all this was already within my expectations." Ryuta was stamping his feet anxiously. "Then you should think of a solution. I don't want to be eaten by hollows. You might as well kill me with one knife." Chapter 368, Ryuta was severely injured. Uehara Shiroha slowly approached Ryuta and asked in a low voice, "Are you sure? If you have this idea, then I'll take action." After hearing what Uehara Shiroha said, Ryuta immediately became timid and didn't dare to say anything else. Raymond, who had been silent at this time, finally stepped forward and spoke, "Don't scare him. Seriously, what should we do now?" Uehara Shiroha frowned and thought carefully, then spoke, "It's not difficult to blend in with them. The key issue now is how do we get out of this place?" Ryuta sneered, "What nonsense! If we had a way to get out, would we still be asking you? We would have gotten out long ago." Uehara Shiroha turned his head and glared at Ryuta, who quickly closed his mouth. Then Uehara Shiroha took out the mask he had picked up from the ground. Uehara Shiroha put the two pieces of the mask together to form a complete mask face. "Although I've cut this thing into pieces, it can still be used if it's put together. With this thing, we can blend in." Raymond was very surprised to see this thing. "I didn't expect you to bring this thing back. This is indeed a good idea. But this cell door can even lock up high-level hollows. I'm afraid we won't be able to get out. Is there any other way to solve the problem?" Uehara Shiroha seemed to have thought of a solution long ago. He looked at Ryuta next to him with a smirk on his face, and Ryuta immediately realized that something was wrong. "Why are you looking at me? Don't count on me. I can't do anything." Uehara Shiroha didn't say anything, but quickly stepped forward and grabbed Ryuta's hair, then raised his knee and pressed it hard on his chest. Ryuta felt like he had run out of breath in an instant and couldn't even make a sound. The people nearby were also frightened when they saw this scene. Although they knew that Uehara Shiroha and Ryuta didn't get along, they didn't expect that Uehara Shiroha would be so heavy-handed. Uehara Shiroha didn't intend to stop, and continued to punch Ryuta in the stomach. Raymond couldn't stand it anymore, so he stepped forward to stop him. "What are you doing? If you have anything to say, let's talk it out. If you keep fighting like this, he'll die." Uehara Shiroha clapped his hands and replied calmly, "This is what I planned. Now it's up to me." At this time, Ryuta was still rolling on the ground, holding his stomach, looking very painful. Uehara Shiroha really didn't hold back this time and his attack was heavy-handed. Then Uehara Shiroha lay on the edge of the cell and shouted loudly, "Can someone come? I'm afraid one of us is dying." Uehara Shiroha tried shouting a few times, but no one paid attention to them. Then he raised his voice and soon attracted attention. A masked man walked over impatiently and asked Uehara Shiroha, "What are you yelling about here?" Uehara Shiroha pointed at Ryuta next to him, "This guy doesn't look good. Do you want to check the situation?" The other party said with disdain, "Don't play tricks on me. Even if he dies, it has nothing to do with me. You guys better behave yourselves and stop causing me trouble." Chapter 369. Seducing the masked man to open the prison door.
Uehara Shiroa suddenly had an idea and answered, "We were all detained here by your president's order. If I'm not mistaken, we'll be used to feed those high-level hollows. If you find that there are fewer people on that day, I don't know whether the president will cause trouble for you." The masked man stood there and thought for a long time. He thought that Uehara Shiroha and others wouldn't dare to do anything. After all, they were surrounded by layers of enemies outside, and they couldn't escape with just a few people. After some hesitation, the masked man opened the door of the cell and walked toward Ryuta cautiously. Just as he squatted down to check on Ryuta's condition, Uehara Shiroa struck the back of his neck and knocked him unconscious. Seeing the scene in front of him, Raymond was frightened and hurriedly asked Uehara Shiroa, "That won't work. If you knock him out now, we won't be able to escape. There are still many people outside, and our weapons have been taken away." Uehara Shiroa squatted down with a smile, then took off the other person's mask. The face under the mask was no different from the previous masked man, with scars all over the face. It seemed that this was the so-called sign of the Dawn Organization. Anyone who joined the Dawn Organization must first endure this kind of pain. Then Uehara Shiroa took off the other person's coat, put it on himself, put on the mask, and asked his companions next to him, "How about it? If I put on this outfit, you probably won't be able to recognize who I am." The companions all nodded. The people of the Dawn Organization didn't have any special characteristics. They wore the same clothes and masks, and as long as they didn't take off the masks, they couldn't tell who the other person was. At this time, everyone finally understood why Uehara Shiroa had attacked Ryuta just now. It seemed that he wanted to use this method to attract the attention of people outside and lure the masked man in. Uehara Shiroa had a broken mask in his hand, but they had no way to get out of the cell. Now that the cell door was open, they could just go out. At this time, Ryuta gradually calmed down, raised his head and asked Uehara Shiroa, "Why did you suddenly attack me so hard? What on earth do you want to do?" Uehara Shiroa shrugged, "For everyone's safety, I have to inconvenience you for a while, but now the cell door is open, so I can go out and scout ahead." Ryuta's eyes rolled around and he immediately made a suggestion, "I should be the one to go out. I just got beaten up for it. It would be a bit unreasonable if I didn't go out." Now everyone was silent. Everyone knew that if they let Ryuta go, it would be difficult to get him back. Judging from his personality, he would definitely take this opportunity to run away. After all, wearing a mask, he could freely enter and exit the territory of the Dawn Organization, and no one would say anything. No one spoke. Ryuta had indeed sacrificed a lot just now, and it was difficult for everyone to refuse him in person, but no one was willing to trust him. Uehara Shiroa said nonchalantly, "It's okay if you insist on going, but you have blonde hair, and people may recognize you at first sight. You should know this in your heart. If you're not afraid of death, then go ahead. I won't stop you." Chapter 370, One Man Escapes from the Cell. Now Ryuta didn't dare to say anything and had to let Uehara Shiroa go alone, but he was a little worried about him. Although Uehara Shiroa had always done things that were beneficial to everyone, if Ryuta had the opportunity to get out, he definitely wouldn't spend so much effort to rescue others. Since he couldn't do it himself, he thought that Uehara Shiroa couldn't do it either, so Ryuta also proposed a suggestion. "It's not impossible for you to go, but you can't go alone. I trust Raymond more, so let him go with you." Uehara Shiroa looked at the other broken mask in his hand and thought that it would be okay to take one more person, but this would also bring new problems, so he answered, "The number of people in our cell is fixed. If one person is missing out of nowhere, do you think they won't notice?" Uehara Shiroa's question really made Ryuta feel a little embarrassed, and he didn't know how to answer. After some thought, Ryuta could only agree with Uehara Shiroa's opinion and let him go out alone. Before leaving, Uehara Shiroa deliberately moved the body of the masked man to the side and let him face the wall so that no one else could see his face. These masked people were just following orders. As long as they saw that there were no fewer people in the cell, they wouldn't care too much. Afterwards, Uehara Shiroa hurriedly walked out of the cell, locked the door again, and walked toward the outside. Not long after Uehara Shiroa walked away, Ryuta started to instigate everyone.
Just wait, I guarantee he won't come back to save us. Shiokura, who had always been on good terms with Uehara Shiroha, was the first to stand up and refute Ryuta. Stop talking nonsense here. You have such an idea yourself. Do you think Uehara Shiroha is the same person as you? Ryuta smiled with disdain. Just wait and see if you don't believe me. He has the chance to run away now. Do you think he'll take such a big risk to come back and save us? We don't have any friendship. We just came together to complete a mission. Your lives aren't that valuable to him, so don't take yourselves too seriously. Shiokura didn't want to argue with him anymore, and Raymond on the side kept trying to calm things down. Don't waste words on him. He's always like this. We should all believe that Uehara Shiroha can come back to save us. After walking out of the cell, Uehara Shiroha walked forward and was shocked by the scene in front of him. No wonder they had to be blindfolded the whole time when they were taken to the dungeon. It turned out that the scene in there was really scary enough. Different levels of hollows were imprisoned in each cell, and there were also some high-level hollows that were devouring low-level ones. Although Uehara Shiroha had known for a long time that the Dawn organization was keeping these hollows to serve them, he hadn't expected that the number was so large. Just as Uehara Shiroha was walking and observing, a voice suddenly came from behind him. Where are you assigned? Why are you still going forward? Uehara Shiroha immediately stopped, and when he turned around, he found a masked man standing behind him. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. Also, the series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World will also be going on hold soon, since we've nearly caught up with the author. So now, I need your help picking the next project for the channel. I'm currently deciding between these 3 fanfics. What if Reborn in Highschool DxD is a Lucifuge? What if Transmigrated to Medieval Pokemon World? What if creating the strongest Strawhat crew by reading manga? Please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. I'll take the top 2 picks and start working on those series next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.